So I'm probably late making this top 10 video, but I really wanted to take my time, think about my list, get it all organized and how I like it, and that's basically what I did. First, I want to start off with movies that I missed this year. There wasn't actually a whole lot that I missed that I wanted to see, but there are some. The first one is Jumanji. I really wanted to see Jumanji because I like The Rock, I like Kevin Hart, I like Jack Black, and it looked like a lot of fun, and I've been hearing good things about it, but unfortunately I just never got out to see it. Next one is Lady Bird. Again, didn't go out to see this. I've heard good things about it. I saw the trailers, it seemed interesting. I'll probably get it on Blu-ray whenever it comes out. I think it's already out on Blu-ray. I don't know. Next is Suburbicon. Suburbicon looks really weird and interesting and bizarre. Unfortunately, I never got around to seeing it. I wanted to see it. It's got Oscar Isaac in it. It's got Matt Damon. It's got George Clooney. It's got Julianne Moore. All fantastic actors. I just never got around to seeing it. Next is Dunkirk. I don't think I'll ever watch Dunkirk because Dunkirk is one of those movies that you just have to see in theaters. It's a theater experience, and I feel like watching it at home on my TV would be a little silly. I don't know, I may check it out at some point, but my experience would be definitely diminished by just watching it on my TV. It's definitely something you have to see in theaters. Next is Phantom Thread. Again, I didn't go out to see this one. I like Paul Thomas Anderson. I love Daniel Day-Lewis. This came out like December 25th. This came out like on Christmas Day. So it's like I just never got around to seeing it. Again, I'll probably see it on Blu-ray or something. I really want to see it because, again, I love both the actor and the director that are in it. Next is Blade Runner 2049, I think. Never got around to seeing this. I wanted to go see it. In fact, I even bought Blade Runner on Blu-ray in preparation to go see Blade Runner 2049, but I just never got around to seeing it. I've heard great things about it. It's making a lot of people's top 10 lists of 2017. I'm sure it's great. I'll probably watch it at some point, but unfortunately I never got to see it in the theater. Next is Molly's Game. Molly's Game looked really interesting. It's Aaron Sorkin's directorial debut. I really like Aaron Sorkin as a writer. He's one of my favorite writers. And it's got Idris Elba and Jessica Chastain in it. They look fucking badass. I just never got around to seeing it, unfortunately. So again, it's another Blu-ray watch for me. And last but not least is Downsizing. Downsizing, I wasn't like super hyped to go see Downsizing, but I was definitely interested in it because it looked interesting and it looked like an interesting concept. Again, never got around to seeing it. Might be a Blu-ray buy, might just, if it's on cable, I'll watch it, whatever. But I do plan on watching it at some point. Now I want to bring up honorable mentions. These are movies that were either on my list for a while and just got knocked off by other movies, or movies that were really good and great and I love, but just weren't, they just weren't good enough to make my favorite films of the year list. One, we have Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond. This is more of a documentary, which is still a movie, but I really loved this documentary. It's about Andy Kaufman. Well, it's not really about Andy Kaufman. It's about Jim Carrey playing Andy Kaufman, and it was really good. It was really entertaining and fascinating. I love Andy Kaufman. I love Jim Carrey. I loved Man on the Moon, and it was just a really fascinating, insight on how Jim Carrey portrayed that character, and it was really good. Next is The Foreigner. The Foreigner was a more recent one that I saw. The Foreigner was actually really good. I was surprised at how good it was. It was a little bit of a different role for Jackie Chan, but he killed it. He knocked it out of the park. The only major glaring problem I had with the movie was Pierce Brosnan's fucking accent. I'm sure I've heard Irish people sound like that, but he was doing a little overboard, and it kind of got a little annoying and on my nerves a little bit. Other than that, it's a great movie. It's really good, but it just wasn't, good enough. I think if there was maybe a little bit more action in the movie, it probably would have elevated it a little bit more. And I know it's not necessarily an action movie, but there is action in it. But whatever. Next is Wolf of the Planet of the Apes. This one was actually on my list for the longest time. You guys know I'm a massive fucking Planet of the Apes fan. And this was, this is probably one of my favorite Planet of the Apes movies of all time. And Andy Serkis' performance in this was fantastic. He honestly deserves an Oscar. If he doesn't get a fucking Oscar this year, there will be riots in the street. It'll probably just be me in the street, but whatever, same thing. This movie was really good. Even though the title's very misleading, all the new Planet of the Apes titles don't really make sense. But it's really good. It was actually really great. I've watched it like a few times. It's fantastic. Next is The Black Coat's Daughter. This was on my list as well for a while, but it wasn't great. It was really good, but it wasn't great, so I kind of got knocked off the list a little bit. It's a really simple, solid horror film, and it's the horror that I like. That's really bizarre and weird, and there's no jump scares. It's just very like long takes and like one shots and just like creepy music, and it's not necessarily scary, but just it makes you feel uncomfortable and disturbed after you watch it. I guess I'm just a morbid, fucked up person, but I like horror movies like that. Next is Psych the movie. I didn't want to put this on my list. It wasn't great. It was really good, and I had a lot of fun with it because I like the Psych show. I like the characters. I like Sean and Gus doing their thing. It is a TV movie. It kind of just felt like a longer episode of the show. You know, it felt like another pilot for the show because I think the pilot was like an hour and a half too. But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't great enough to get on my list. And last but not least, we have Get Out. Get Out was also another movie on my list that unfortunately got knocked off. Get Out really surprised the fuck out of me because I try to avoid movies about race and discrimination, but this movie kind of starts that way, but then it becomes something completely different by the end, and I fucking loved it. The best way that I kind of describe this movie is a 2-hour long Twilight Zone episode, because that's kind of what it is. It gets very surreal and bizarre and becomes more of like a sci-fi, supernatural, not sci-fi, but it becomes like a supernatural thriller by the end, and I fucking loved it, and it was really good. Oh, I also forgot to mention John Wick 2. John Wick 2 was on my list for a long time as well, but I had to take it off just because there were better movies that came out. I love John Wick 2. John Wick 2 is a great action film, but again, just wasn't great enough to get on my list. I'm sorry. Sorry, Keanu. Okay, so now let's get to my top 10 favorite films of 2017. So starting off at number 10, we have Good Time. Now, Good Time is one I've actually seen fairly recently. I bought it on Blu-ray, and it was actually pretty fantastic, and I like how simple it was. It's a very simple, small, like, crime thriller almost, and it's really great because it knows it's simple. It's not trying to be this bigger thing. It's just this small, little, simple crime story, and Robert Pattinson was great in it. The other guy who, I'm not sure if he's an actual actor, but he was great in it. I don't know his name, unfortunately, but he was really good in it. Everyone was just fantastic in this. This was a really great movie. Next, we have Split. Split came out super early in 2017. It came out in like January, and Split really surprised the fuck out of me. Even if, and I'm gonna spoil it a little bit, but even without the ending of Bruce Willis showing up, it still would have been a fantastic movie. It's just the ending elevated it a little bit. It made it a little bit more than what it was. It made it a little bit better than it actually was, which I guess isn't fair, but fuck you, it's fair to me. But Split was actually really good, and I can't wait for Glass next year, because Glass is gonna be sick. Number 8, the Meyerowitz stories. This one was actually not on the list for a while, but as I started to think about it, it's actually pretty damn good. It's a pretty great film, and it's got Adam Sandler in it, who for the past 10 years has made nothing but shit, and he was great in it. Ben Stiller was great in it. Dustin Hoffman was fucking excellent in it. Emma Thompson was fucking great in it. It's very simple. Again, I like simple little small movies. It knows what it is. It's not trying to be anything else. It's kind of about family, and it's kind of about artists in a way, and as a filmmaker artist myself, I can relate, so it kind of hit me on certain aspects, and it's a really great film, and it's very indie, but yeah, and the performances are really what hold the movie up. Next, number 7 is Logan. Logan surprised the fuck out of me. Now, I liked the Wolverine, but I never expected Logan I never expected like any superhero movie this year to really make my top 10. but Logan is so good that it transcends the superhero genre. It's just a film, and it's a damn good one. Anyone can watch this film and understand exactly what's happening, understand the characters, understand the motivations, and it's really sad and depressing. And as someone who has kind of grown up along with these X-Men films, now seeing Hugh Jackman end his role as Wolverine when he's been the only Wolverine we've had in the films, it's actually kind of sad, and it makes the movie even sadder, because it's like, this is the last time we're gonna see Hugh Jackman portray this character in a film, unless they bring it back in the next X-Men movie, which they better not, because that'll be a huge slap in the face. But whatever, I digress. But it works, and I'm glad that his final send-off was excellent. I've seen this on a lot of people's top 10 lists, so I'm not the only one saying this. I fucking loved Logan. I especially love the black and white version because I'm an artsy-fartsy, pretentious fuck. Number 6, we have Colossal. Colossal was a huge fucking surprise. I didn't even know what this movie was about. I saw like half of a trailer, and I turned it off. I was like, okay, this is saying too much about the movie. I do kind of want to see this. I'm kind of interested in it. And I eventually saw it, and I fucking loved it. It kind of starts out as one thing. It kind of starts out as like a goofy, quirky like comedy. Then it turns into something else, and I was hooked. Jason Sudeikis was fucking great in it. Anne Hathaway gets shit on a lot. I don't mind Anne Hathaway. I thought she was fine in this movie. This is actually one of her better performances in a film. But I don't understand the hate for Miss Anne Hathaway. But Jason Sudeikis really stole the show. He was fantastic. And I like Jason Sudeikis, but I didn't know he could act like this well. He fucking nailed it. Number 5 is It Comes at Night. Now, you guys know, if you saw my previous video, I am a little biased towards this film just because this is kind of like, this is the ultimate like my movie. Like, this feels like a movie I would make. In fact, I was writing a script that was basically exactly like this. So this is essentially my movie, so I'm a little biased towards it. But it's a great fucking movie. Fuck off. It's really great. It's really simple. Again, a lot of the movies on my list this year are simple, but that's good. Joel Edgerton was great. There's a lot of unknowns, or at least I don't know of them. They all did fantastic. It's kind of horror in a way. There are some jump scares, but it didn't bog down the story or like annoy me. There's only like a couple, and it's at the very beginning. So it's kind of a horror thriller drama, sort of. If that makes sense. Probably doesn't, but that's what it is. Number 4 is A Ghost Story. Now, A Ghost Story, I remember watching this movie, and when it ended, I was visible, like my mouth was open, and I just didn't know, like I was like, what the fuck did I just watch? But in a good way, you know? I fell in love with this film like as soon as it started. Like, I loved just the cinematography, I loved the tone, and when I found out what it was about by watching the movie, because I saw no trailers for this ahead of time, when I actually saw in the movie what it was about, I was like, fuck, this is incredible. And it's one of the most depressing movies that I've probably ever seen, next to Synecdoche, New York, directed by Charlie Kaufman. But I don't mind depressing movies if there's art around it, and this movie is art. It's beautiful. It's a great story. The only real flaw with the movie is that there's one scene in the movie around like the middle where there's basically a character just explaining to you what's happening, and it's like, we kind of didn't need that, because I kind of understood what was happening, and that scene kind of went on a little too long. But if you cut that one scene out, it's basically a perfect film. I don't want to be that guy, but it's practically perfect. Number 3, we have Baby Driver. Now, Baby Driver was number 1 on my list for a long ass time. I remember seeing Baby Driver and just being like, this movie's fucking fantastic. It's a lot of fun. It's well directed, well acted. I've seen Baby Driver more than probably any film of 2017. But there were some things that I personally thought were better than Baby Driver, and it kind of knocked it down a little bit. Still a fantastic movie, I'm still gonna watch it, 4 times a day for the rest of my life. But it's just fantastic. And Ansel Elgort, really, like, he wasn't like he didn't knock it out of the park really, but he did a damn good job in it, which is surprising because the last thing I saw him in, A Fault in Our Stars, he was not very good in, but he was really good in this. So was Jamie Foxx. So was John Hamm. So was Kevin Spacey. Oh wait, we can't talk about Kevin Spacey. Number 2 is The Disaster Artist. I actually haven't seen this on a lot of top 10 lists. I don't know why. I guess it just wasn't their favorite movie of the year, and that's fine. But this film is fantastic. And again, I love seeing movies where it's basically celebrating film and celebrating movies, and that's kind of what this was. It was basically saying, like, yeah, Tommy Wiseau is a weirdo, but he made this thing that everyone loves, everyone knows. It's just, people watch and have fun, and he had good intentions. He just made a weird movie, and he's just a weird guy, It wasn't really making fun of Tommy Wiseau. It was more like... It felt kind of like a Tim Burton movie almost, where Tim Burton's earlier stuff was more about, like, the celebration and the acceptance of, like, freaks and weirdos. That's kind of what this was. It was kind of like everyone's kind of beating down on Tommy, and you're kind of like, well... you kind of like Tommy, and it's really sad, and by the end, everyone's kind of accepting of it, and it just felt really nice. And I don't know how much of this is actually true, but I don't really care, because it's a fucking great movie. Now, number 1, this is a film I actually saw pretty recently. That's why it wasn't in my previous movie, my recap, but this is a movie I've been waiting to see fucking all year, and for some reason, I just waited this long to see it. The Shape of Water. This movie was... wonderful. This movie was fantastic. Like, I love Guillermo del Toro, but, like, I didn't expect this movie to be this good. Like, this movie was fantastic. It was beautiful. It was romantic. It was sad. It was funny. It was well performed. Sally Hawkins had one of the best, characters in a movie this year, and without even saying, she says no dialogue in this movie, but she gets across so much in this film. Doug Jones, one of my personal favorite actors, fucking nails it in this. He's not in it a whole lot, but he nails it. He knocks it out of the park as usual. Richard Jenkins was fucking good in it. Michael Shannon, I love Michael Shannon. He's fucking great in everything. He was fucking great in this. Everyone was great in this. I don't think there was, usually, even in movies that I love, there's always like one performance that didn't really do it for me. In this, everyone, like, I liked everyone. I liked everyone's character. There wasn't really anything I hated about this. Maybe it could have been a little bit longer, maybe, and we could have seen more of Doug Jones, just because I love Doug Jones. But, that's maybe the only flaw. But if that's the only flaw of the movie, then you did a good job, Guillermo. So that is my top 10 movies, top 10 favorite movies of 2017. I don't know if I'm going to do top 10 worst movies of 2017. I might. I don't know. I don't really want to, but I might. So yeah, look out for that maybe. But yeah, this is my list. If you don't like it, fuck off.